Welcome to Surviving on Spice, the podcast for burnt out moms surviving modern life on caffeine, spicy books, and the wingspan of a feral book boyfriend. I'm Nadine Tice. Let's take a breath and escape.
Hello, and welcome back to Surviving on Spice with me, your host, Nadine Tice, spicy forbidden romance author. If you are watching on video, you'll notice my setup is a little bit different. If you're listening on audio, you have no idea what I'm talking about, so don't worry about it. But today, the tech is not teching. It is rebelling against me, so I am not in my normal setup. I have moved over to my computer, but honestly, it has the better audio setup, so we'll see. We'll see what I end up doing. But either way, I had to bring you a podcast episode today, and I'll get into that a little bit why basically I had to miss one and why this one almost didn't happen either. But I'm committed that I promised you an episode for Friday, and you're going to get your episode for Friday. So we are going to get into today's episode, which is Vampires and Why We Love Them, Part 2, because of course it needs a Part 2. We're not done talking about it. May not even be done talking about it by the time we're done with this episode. But before we go there, I want to do a little bit of real talk. I want to back it up a little bit. So first of all, I apologize that I did miss an episode, and I didn't get this posted when I said I would. Accountability is super important to me, and so I'm very sorry for that. But life has been life, and my plate runneth over. And things have been, the last couple of weeks have been extremely difficult for me. So when it actually came time to record this episode, which should have been 2 weeks ago, because I post these every 2 weeks in theory. I was absolutely overloaded. I was stressed to the max. I'm still stressed to the max, and I want to talk to you about that too, because I know I'm not alone here. And um, and I also was sick, and I'm only just now getting my voice back. So if I sound a little scratchy, a little sultry, I mean, I can dig the sultry thing, but that is because I am just now getting a voice back. Over the last week and week before, you did not want to hear me talk. I sounded like a frog in puberty, and so I just now have enough of a voice back to record this. So here I am recording this podcast. So please forgive the voice, but super, super important for me to be here. So let's get into that real talk I was talking about. So as I said, I am a burnt out millennial mom. I am stressed to the max. There's times where, no lie, I think a couple nights ago, 2 in the morning, I just cried, ugly cried, and I'm not a crier, um, because that was the only time I finally had to myself. And I'm not saying this for sympathy. I'm saying this because I know it's relatable. I know that I am not alone here, and that many of you feel that way as well. And you're just, you've strung out to your last little bit, and then right, someone needs you again, and someone needs you, and it never stops. Um, so that's why I considered not doing this episode this week either, because I am so exhausted. But I know that there's people who need to hear this message. So if I can provide that, then mission accomplished for me. If I can give you something to relate to, mission accomplished. Okay, wow, wow. I guess I needed to get that off my chest. But now that, right, we've had a little bit of real talk, let's get into why you're here, vampires, woohoo, and why we love them, part 2. So, last time we talked about it was a little bit lighter. This time we're going to really get into the psychology of vampires. And I want to start with there was a video that I saw, and I apologize, I cannot remember the name of the creator. I tried to find this video again and I was unsuccessful, and I can't even remember what platform it was on. But the creator talked about how if you are attracted to vampires, the idea of the vampire, the appeal is not just it's not that they it's not just that they want you. There we go. I can promise I can talk. It's not just that they want you. It's that they need you. Literally, for survival. They need the sustenance of your blood to continue surviving. And it's that need to be needed by somebody, to be and wanted by somebody to that big level, to that extreme, is part of the allure of the vampire lore. And then the creator went on to say, you might want to get therapy. And that has stuck with me. That has stuck with me. But let's unpack that idea a little bit, right? That being essential, that being irreplaceable, being chosen, being just so desperately needed by another person. I can see the pull. I can see the allure there. So there's something very, very powerful about that fantasy that someone doesn't just desire you, they need you. They depend on you. So, food for thought. Point two that I wanted to talk about is the idea of significance. So, if you go into most of the vampire lores, there's some aspect of immortality common to the lore. So these vampires, either they cannot be killed at all, period, the end, they're already dead. That's so when I write vampires, that's how I write them. They're already dead. You cannot kill what is already dead. In other vampire lores, right, you have they can burn in the sun, they can be staked through the heart. There are ways to unalive a vampire, or as much as they're alive, which goes back to my argument, but that's for another day. I promise I can debate that all day long. But I'm going to step back from that for the purpose of this particular podcast. But the idea that you have a either relatively or absolutely immortal being who has seen, unless they're very newly turned, they have seen centuries, decades, centuries, maybe even millennia of history. And they probably have a very different perspective on the world, right? So we live 80 years, plus or minus, right? Obviously, like a little longer, but that is human life right there. So let's say on average, right, I've got 8 decades of life. Take a vampire who's it's not unreasonable to think that they have seen 10 times that time. So they have seen things that I've only read about in history books. They have seen the rise and fall of empires. They have seen the cyclical nature that is human society. And they probably have this a larger perspective. They're not in the granular details. They're not down in the weeds because, right, what we are obsessed over today, tomorrow has changed. And time probably means something different to them. So just keep with that in mind, right? With that difference in perspective, the fact that an absolutely an immortal being with that level of perspective hones in on a mortal, finds that mortal who has lived maybe a few decades only, um, finds them attractive, of course, but also finds that unique spark that there's something in them they haven't seen in all of their centuries of living. Um, I don't know. There's something. It gives you a sense of significance that I could be. Because I mean, I know if you're like me, I put myself in the heroine of every story I read. It's me, and so the idea that someone with that perspective could narrow down and pluck me from my mundane life and see value and significance in me, I don't know. That there's an allure there too. I won't I won't lie. That desire to be seen, that desire to be cherished, that you can that someone with that perspective chose you. I get it. I get it. And also, now let's look point three. Lately, and I'm gonna bring this back to Twilight. I know I talked about Twilight last time, and I know Twilight. I can get into the weeds on Twilight too, on both sides of the argument. But Twilight did something in pop culture, especially in romance literature, um, that while it wasn't new necessarily, it was the springboard concept where the vampire is not automatically the villain. So, and take other either books, TV shows, movies. The vampire prior to Twilight, the vampire is the villain automatically. The vampire is the monster. The vampire is just the thing to be slayed, the monster to be defeated simply because of what it is. And then Twilight came around. And again, like I said, I know it wasn't, there are other authors who did this prior to Twilight. Twilight was just what springboarded it. Twilight came along, and all of a sudden now we've got the vampires cast in the role of hero. We have vampires who are the good guys, who are not, who have a sense of morality, who have a sense of um, I don't want to just be the bad guy because that's how I'm cast. And that there was something to that. And then now we've seen a huge surge or a huge bloom of vampire romance literature where that really embodies that the vampire is the hero. And I don't know, I think that's kind of cool too, because I'll be honest, prior to Twilight, I was not a vampire fan at all. And the reason for that is because I hated the idea that something that a creature, a person, a being is typecast as the villain simply because of what they are. I think um, without getting too deep there, and you can read between the lines, that's an incredibly problematic statement. I'm just going to leave that right there. So. And then point four, because we got to bring it back to fun and spice. We have to. I have a very dear friend of mine, and this was as I was writing Star-Crossed Nocturne, which is my debut. It is my flipped vampire romance where she's the vampire, not him. And we can talk about that. I think maybe we need a part three here, but it won't be the next episode I do. Um, but she said as I was writing this, and she sent to me, and I'm gonna quote her. She said, "Ain't no sex like vampire sex." And okay, that honestly, that made me laugh. That made my day. This stuck with me to this day. It actually changed some of my plot in Star-Crossed Nocturne to make it even spicier. It actually changed the way I concluded the book. It was that little saying right there from my friend. I'll keep her anonymous, but if she's watching this, she knows who she is, and so thank you for that. But yeah, ain't no sex like vampire sex. I think, especially for a fan of spicy romance. That's a pull too. That is definitely an allure. So, all right, so that's my thoughts on vampires and why we love them. A little bit into the psychology of it today. But I'll go ahead and wrap it there. But drop in the comments, right? What is the pull for you? What is the vampire pull for you? Why do you love them? Why do you keep coming back to them? And if you hate vampires, one, I'm not sure you would have stuck through this episode. So if you did, cool, thank you. But yeah, so if you're still here, you're still listening, and you don't like vampires and they're not your thing, drop in the comments that too. I'm just curious to see. Let's make a little conversation out of it. There's no judgment. There's no right or wrong here. We all like what we like, and we don't like what we don't like. So that's that. But all right, let's move on to what is now becoming one of my very favorite segments, and is the biscuit tin or the random questions in a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle coffee cup. So that's a little long for a segment title, but we're going with it. We're going with it. So, as a reminder, or if this is the first episode you are joining me for, I have a bunch of random questions in this classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle coffee cup because it's awesome. And I do not know what these questions are. They were submitted. I did an Ask Me Anything. I did a call for questions. I got questions from a bunch of different sources, and they are printed out. They are on these little strips of paper, and I have no idea what they are. So I'm going to pull one out. I'm scared, and I will answer it without any prep whatsoever. So let's see what we got. Let's see. What is one household chore that you irrationally hate? Vacuuming. Um, I don't know if it's rational or irrational, and I'm going to give you a little bit of my childhood trauma here. But when I was, I think about three or so, old enough to remember it, but not old enough to remember well. Um, I had a caretaker. While my parents went to work, there was a lady who stayed with me in the house, and she would also do some of our housework. And when she was vacuuming, she wanted to make sure that I stayed put, so she sat me on the ottoman of in our living room. And anytime that I would move, she would threaten me with the vacuum cleaner. True story. I'm still here. I mean, I guess it scarred me enough to make me hate vacuuming, but yeah, so to this day, I do not like the vacuum. I'm like a dog or a cat in that respect. You bring out the vacuum, and that's the easiest way to get me to run for the hills. So, rational or irrational, I'm not sure, but I particularly hate that household chore because I hate the vacuum cleaner. All right, let's do one more. Let's do these are fun. These are fun. Okay, one more question. Again, no prep whatsoever. All right, a trope you pretend not to like, but absolutely do. Trope I pretend not to like, but I absolutely do. I'm not sure if I pretend not to like it, but there's something about the workplace romance that gets me. Um, and particularly when there is a power imbalance there. Now, if it's just two co-workers, sneaking off on a break behind the coffee machine. That doesn't do it for me. But when it's the boss or the employee, or there's significant levels of power imbalance there in the workplace, because you got the secrecy and you've got the probably age gap, you've got the power imbalance, you've got the forbidden nature of it, and we all know that I'm a sucker for anything forbidden. But yeah, I would say the workplace romance with that dynamic. All right, so there's the questions. Hey, if you have questions that you want to appear in this coffee cup, drop them in the comments for me. Who knows? They might end up on an episode. So, um, all right, so we're gonna start wrapping this up. Thank you so much for being here with me. I always like to include a permission slip in these episodes because I think I know I definitely need it, and I think you probably do too. So. Here's your permission slip for this week. You do not have to do everything. You do not have to be overwhelmed, and or and your needs matter. Your needs absolutely matter. So if you've been feeling like everyone's else's needs have taken precedence over your own, ask me how I know. I definitely have been there, right? With kids sick, with me sick, but moms aren't allowed to take sick days, so they say. So trying to take care of all of them while trying to take care of myself poorly, and just getting buried and getting lost in that, losing my identity and all of that. I've definitely been there, and so I need this permission slip. So you are allowed to protect a small corner of your life, that belongs only to you. And you know what? Sometimes that corner is a good spicy book. Just saying. I know we all have a love for our spicy romance. That's why we're here. That's why we're chatting together. So you know what? Sometimes if it's just 10 minutes where no one needs anything from you, embrace that. And yeah, that's your permission for the week. Find that little corner of time that is just yours, wherever that is, even if it's 2 in the morning, right? Find that time that's just yours and fill it with whatever makes you happy. So. All right. Thank you so much for joining me for yet another episode of Surviving on Spice. I'll be back in 2 weeks. And I look forward. Drop in the comments, right? Drop what you liked. If there's anything you want to see, do that too. Also, if this resonated with you, if there were some words in here that you needed to hear, then I consider my mission accomplished because I create this to be an escape from life for, for 10 to 15 minutes. And so if I help provide you that, thank you for joining me and thank you for sharing that with me. Do me a favor, go ahead and mash the buttons. Apparently it helps the algorithm, so that this can get out and get in the hands of other people who need to see it. So do me a favor. Also, it kind of helps my ego feeling like I'm not crying into the void here. So do me a favor, mash the buttons, drop a comment, say hi, just so I don't feel like I'm talking to nobody. Because I'm not. I'm not. I'm talking to the people who need to hear it, and I know that. So, all right. Thank you again so much. Have a great week. Take care of you. Take care of you. And I will see you next time. Bye.